family means everything to Jesus, and we want it to also mean everything to you. Hey guys, this is Theo Koulianos with a Place for Family podcast where we discuss any and all things family. This is part 2 with my buddy, my rabbi, Scott Volk.
Do you know that nobody else calls me their rabbi?
Because you are no one else's rabbi but mine. Yeah, you are my rabbi.
That's awesome.
So if you haven't checked out the previous resource, please make sure to do that. Remember, like, subscribe, follow, all that kind of stuff. But it's important that you watch the episode before just to get to know the heart of Scott. And we actually had the opportunity to share some things back and forth. And what he shared in regards to family will be transformative to you and your family. So please make sure to take the time to check it out. So today I want to talk about kind of off the cuff, raw conversation, as deep as you're willing to take it. One of the things that we have said before, Rachel and I, when we're doing our podcast, is that pain was an unfortunate teacher, which would in essence say, I learned how to do the right thing by doing the wrong thing. And anytime I did the wrong thing, it hurt the people I loved. The people that I loved most, which was my family. We grew up in a culture, in the Greek culture. My big fat Greek wedding it doesn't get much better as far as a reflection is concerned. It's very true. And you said on the last episode that we did, you did the DNA thing and you were 100% Jew. I was 97% Aegean in there. And I felt a sense of pride. I was like, I'm almost a thoroughbred. Not like you, and so I looked at my kids and I said, hey, just want to let you know, your mom has, some Middle Eastern in her. She's got a little bit of Hungarian. When it comes to your father, your blood that's running through your veins, the majority of it is Greek. And I needed them to know that and appreciate that. And they were so proud of it. Rach was incredibly furious when I began to brainwash them in that. But with that being said, when I went to get married, I remember, and my parents, they were watching this, they did the best they knew to do. They only gave to us what they had received themselves, and so these perspectives were ingrained in them. Yeah, and so you can't beat yourself up wishing you would. Of course, we wish we would have done things differently in the past, but the fact is, you can only give what you got. Yeah, and so they did the best they could with what they had. But we wanted to get premarital counseling, and my parents literally, like in my big fat Greek wedding, when you hear xeno, which would be white people. They said, you can't go to Xeni about your family. You can't go outside the house about your family. You can't go talk to strangers about your family. So I was like, but everyone's doing this thing called premarital counseling. I've never even heard of it. We were raised Greek Orthodox. Never heard of premarital counseling. There was prearranged marriage, but that was basically it. And so we never did it. And my wife was like, we should do this. I'm like, no, I can't go to strangers or white people. When we get married, and it's horrible. I'm incredibly prideful, stubborn in my ways. I just thought, you know what? My wife's Middle Eastern. I'm Greek. I watched the people in our culture cook, clean, have sex with their husbands, be fruitful, multiply, be there for their kids. Didn't really say much. And I was like, this is a dream. This is perfect. It wasn't like that. Rach was like, if you think I'm going to be a doormat, you got the wrong girl. You should have married someone else. And I tried to make her a doormat in the beginning. It didn't work. I became the doormat. And so we went to counseling within the first few years because we were going at it. I literally sat down with the counselor at the church that I was a pastor at, by the way. And she handled marriage and family counseling. And Rachel sits down. She goes, listen, Theo doesn't really want to be here. But I've made him, he has to be here right now. And I looked at her, I said, it's not that I just don't want to be here. And I look at the counselor, I said, there's nothing you can do for me. And she goes, why would you say that? I go, because you're white. Literally, that's what I said. I said, you don't understand my culture. Yeah. And so if you understood the culture, maybe you could help me. And she opens the book. She goes, does this book understand your culture? And she just shredded me to pieces. It was the first time Rachel was like, finally, somebody has humbled him. With all that being said, I wish I would have known some things walking into my marriage, let alone the things once a child comes into the picture. I wish I would have known some things in being a father and or a husband Then you throw ministry into that
Yeah.
scenario, the call of God, full-time ministry, and you have these three pillars per se that are incredibly important to each of us. But what would you have done differently? What do you wish someone would have given you on the infancy stages of first marriage?
Yeah. That's a great question.
You probably weren't as jacked up as I was, so they might
But I am white.
Yeah.
And I love that you're asking
Yeah.
me this
Yeah.
question. Well, how did you say it in Greek?
But
Xeno?
I'm white. Xeno.
Xeno.
Yeah, xeni, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, since you taught us a Greek word, I'm going to teach us a Hebrew word. Okay. Xeno is white.
Yeah.
Echad. 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 And that word means one in Hebrew. So the greatest prayer in all of Judaism is, it goes, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Yeah.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And then go back to Genesis. At the institution of marriage, it says, for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother, cleave to his wife, and the two shall become echad.
Wow.
God is echad. Husband and wife is echad. And Jesus, Yeshua, before he goes to the cross, he prays in John 17, Father, make them echad.
God. Wow.
Even as you and I are echad, so that the world will know you sent me. See, the greatest demonstration to the authenticity of Jesus is that we are one.
Wow.
He didn't pray, Lord, give him great evangelistic crusades, give them great healing ministries, give them words of knowledge that'll read each other's mail, because those things aren't ultimate. What's ultimate is that we would be one. What's ultimate is that, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. What's ultimate is, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one. Now, it's interesting.
Wow, that's good.
Because I'm no Hebrew scholar, and I don't even really know Hebrew.
You're my rabbi.
I'm your
Don't
rabbi.
say
So, Rabbi Scott, I wish I would have worn my yarmulke. Maybe for the next episode, I can find something to put on my head and make everybody think I'm legit. But there's two words for one in Hebrew. One is echad, and one is yachid. Yachid is one and only one. Here's this one microphone.
Got it.
One and only one. And if there's two microphones together, it's no
can't be
longer
that.
yachid.
Okay.
Echad is one, like one family, one forest, one people. And it's interesting that God, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. It didn't say yachid. It said echad, meaning kind of this this compound unity that God can't really even exist as God without his Son,
Wow.
the Holy Spirit. That's what really makes him God. So what I wish I would have known, I actually did know, but didn't necessarily practice, that in marriage, God's bringing two yachids together,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And forming one echad.
Wow. That's good.
And the devil's going to do everything he can to divide those. Because then the testimony of Jesus is, that's why God hates divorce.
Yeah.
He didn't create us to come together and then to separate, whether it's marriage or whether it's church. I mean, think of this, bro. I don't know. Somebody can probably Google it right now, but there are tens of thousands of Christian denominations. You know, it's like his body, it's supposed to be one body. That's what Ephesians says. Echad, one body, one people. So when the Lord brings two people together in marriage, I believe that the greatest testimony of Jesus where marriage is concerned is one, echad. Not one becoming two, two becoming one. So that's what we have to contend for in our marriages.
So the spiritual dynamic, obviously everything is centered around that. So please hear what I'm saying. Not minimizing that. And as far as the applications of actually implementing and becoming one.
Yeah.
So how did you and Beth become one?
Perfect question. Well, I believe that unfortunately, unity is costly. Division is not costly. Division's easy. Hey, listen, you go your way, I'll go my way.
Absolutely.
But if we're willing to lay down our lives, no greater love than one lays down his life.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, killing yourself
Right.
or being killed. It means, listen, I've got my desires, I've got my likes, I've got my preferences, but for the sake of becoming one, I am going to come and serve, which is exactly what Jesus did.
Yeah.
Philippians chapter 2, he didn't count equality with God something to be
Yeah.
grasped. He emptied himself.
Right.
How many guys do you know want to empty themselves?
Yeah.
It's just not, that's costly.
Yeah.
That's becoming Christ-like, is saying, okay, not my will, but thy will be done. We have to do that where God's concerned. How about with husbands and wives? Ephesians 5 talks about this very, very strongly. No man hates himself, right?
Right.
But when we live for the other, then everything changes.
Yeah.
Because look, when I come home after a hard day at work, and my wife's got 4 kids under the age of 6 who she's been with all day, and all I want to do is kick off my shoes and watch ESPN or a playoff game.
Yeah.
What I really should be doing is like, honey, how can I help you? Because when I do that, I'm not only blessing her, according to Ephesians 5, I'm blessing myself.
Yes, of course.
And that's almost kind of a weird way of being, of looking for blessing. But what I wish I would have practiced immediately was the idea of echad, understanding that when I lay down my own desires for the sake of my wife, then that's two becoming one. When I magnify my own desires and do my own thing, whether it's kicking up my shoes and watching ESPN or going golfing when I really should be being with my kids and my family. Nothing wrong with golf, bro.
Yeah.
But since we talked about golf a little bit in the other episode, I really feel like there is a constant war for our affections. And when we give in to serving ourselves, we fail, whether it's with our wives or with the church or with God.
Yeah.
And it's all kind of part of this bubble. So when two yachids become one echad,
That's so good.
God is glorified. God never intended for there to be separation or division. He intended in our relationships with each other and our relationships with him. But think about this.
So good.
As soon as sin entered the world, as soon as man and woman partook of that fruit, God never intended for us to die. In the day you eat of this, you surely will die. That was never his intention for us. He went into action and he cursed the snake. He said, one's coming that's going to crush your head. He's sending the Messiah that's going to conquer sin and death and restore relationship with God. I believe that same Messiah, Jesus, is here to restore relationships with husbands and wives. And there's no point that's too far where our relationships with our wives are concerned or our relationships with our spouses. And there may be some of you that are watching that may think, there's no hope for me. Yes, there's hope because God is the God of hope. He gives life to the dead. He restores hope. So I would say, listen, it's never too late to say, okay, I'm willing to die to my own flesh, to live for my spouse and for the Lord and see life come. So that would be the first and foremost thing that I feel.
With that being said, we didn't realize how you have to fight for unity.
You have to fight.
It's a good fight. It's a God fight.
Yeah.
But laying down my life to serve my families is one of the greatest privileges I have. But it's also one of the most difficult things, which should be the easiest thing, but it seems to be difficult.
Yeah.
One of the things that's really helped us in the area of becoming one, my relationship with the Lord, well, first of all, I would have no relationship with him unless he communicated to me. He called my name. Just the simplicity of communicating with the Lord, either through prayer, through his word, spending time with him. Time and communication was the very thing that has fortified my relationship with the Lord. Who I am today and who I was when I first met him, there's a big difference. And really the only defining factor in the depth of my relationship with the Lord is the time that I've spent with him and the time that I communicate with him.
Love it, yeah.
One of the things that we are seeing in marriages today is statistically we are seeing a lack of communication in the home. Would you say that it's probably, how did communication play into you and Beth becoming one?
Huge.
Was it something that you've had to prioritize? Are there little things that you do, like when we have dinner, we do highs and lows, we make the kids look at each other, we talk about what we're feeling. Is there anything that you did that somebody else could do that could begin to foster communication in this oneness?
Yeah, I think that that's great. I think one thing that both Beth and I have learned is we need to take time to develop our relationship, even with kids, as a matter of fact, especially with young kids, because there's kids are a blessing from the Lord. But in the midst of raising kids, Beth and I really felt like it was important for us to have our times together. Very, very practically. We had the kids in bed by 7 or 8 o'clock. The rest of the night was ours.
Yeah.
We consistently maintained a once a week date night.
Yeah.
Where we had a babysitter come, and even if we didn't have the money to go out to a meal, we were investing in our relationship with one another. Once a year, we go away together, whether it's in town or out of town, and we'll ask each other some questions like, is there anything I can do to be a better husband?
I love
Is
that.
there anything I can do? So we talk about physical, spiritual, and emotional needs. And we're inviting each other. Like, so when Beth will tell me, look, when we go out on our date nights and
You're on your
you
phone.
bring your phone with you.
Yeah, Rach
and
hates
that. Oh, bro.
She hates it.
I don't know why,
I know.
but I definitely, look, I've got a
Yeah.
picture of my wife
Yeah.
on my phone. It's like, honey, I'm looking at you.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
she doesn't buy
yeah.
that at
Yeah, of
all.
course.
But if we really love each other, there should be nothing that can in any way intrude on that time. So when Beth tells me, it means a lot to me when you look me in the eye and talk to me. It means a lot to me when I feel like I'm more important than your phone. I think that there are these vices that come in. And look, obviously I love Beth more than I love a text message coming in.
Sure, of course.
But if I'm not willing to put that thing away or leave it in the car when we go into a restaurant,
Yeah.
I'm practically telling her that I'm willing to be interrupted tonight by something that is way less important than you.
very true.
And I really feel like those are the little foxes.
Yeah.
Those, whether it's a phone, whether it's a television, whether it's a game that we play. I mean, our wives, our husbands, I mean, if we're speaking to women as well, we need to show our spouses that they are more important than anything that is going to vie for our attention. So those are practical things.
So the consistency of date night,
Consistency of a date night.
kids' bedtime's really important. The best getting them down early so that you can have time. Rach and I, we do that as well. We have actually even talked to the boys about it and say, hey, when you ask to stay up later, I just want to let you know what that communicates to mommy and I.
Yeah.
And they didn't realize that. They're like, hey, we just want to stay up later. I said, but just to let you know, when you do that, you're actually saying, hey, that time that is important to you and mommy, staying up is more important to me.
Here's what you do. Here's what you do. I did this when I was younger, and I had to apologize. But my kids said, hey, can we stay up late tonight? And I said, yes. And they said, how late? I said, 10 o'clock. And they were like, Dad,
Yeah.
we love Dad. I changed every clock in the house 2 hours ahead. So when it was 8 o'clock, the clock said 10 o'clock. Oh, Dad, we
That's
love you, man. We
amazing.
love you. Anyway.
Did you change it before they woke up?
I changed it before they woke
yeah,
up, and I did have to confess later on.
That's
but
so funny.
I was really, really cool.
That's
but
funny.
seriously, bro, I feel like
But it does take a family effort.
it takes a family effort. And I believe if we're really going for echad, if we're really going for one, again, look, when the disciples came to Jesus, I think it's in the Gospel of Mark, although it's in the other Gospels as well, but the Gospel of Mark said, what's the greatest commandment?
Yeah.
And Jesus responded by saying, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
Yeah.
And you should love the Lord your
Right.
God with all your heart. Look, Jesus is never going to knock on his Father's door and say, Dad, we've had a great run all these millennia, but I'm taking my ministry
Right.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's heresy. Jesus is never going to do that. God, there's never going to be a split, in heaven.
Yeah.
Never. It's I and the Father are one. So we've got to be going after that in our relationships. And unfortunately, even ministry.
Yeah.
Let's
jump into the ministry side.
So ministry. Wow.
Family and ministry.
Yeah. So we were, Beth and I were privileged in the 1990s to be part of a move of God at a church in Pensacola, Florida. Some people watching may have heard of the Brownsville revival. Yep. So I was 32 years old. My kids were between the ages of 2 and 7 or 8 when we moved there. Meetings Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, started at 7, ended at midnight.
Wow.
And I was traveling around the world at that point. I was Dr. Michael Brown's personal assistant. We were traveling around the world. And here I was, a father with young children in the midst of a real move of God.
Sure.
Some people may say it wasn't a move of God. Listen, I lived in it. I saw people's lives transformed. But the issue for me was, okay, how do I raise my kids in this environment? How do I nurture my marriage in this environment? And that was, Theo, this is a hard thing. But I'm just going to say it.
Yeah.
I may get castigated.
Yeah.
Is that even a word?
I don't know, but we like it.
Sounds good. Castigated. That's
I'll provide a
castigated. That was
definition below.
4 syllables. Fact check me on that one. But we had to come to a place where we needed to realize our family unit was more important than being at church every night.
How long did that take you to realize?
It took me.
And what caused you to see that?
What caused me to see it was my wife feeling like or sensing that we weren't getting family time. Bro, I don't know if all men are like me, but I need my wife. It's almost like McFly. Are you in there? But we have to be hearing our wives.
Yeah.
And when Beth, who was homeschooling our 4 kids, and then going every night. I mean, I thank God that we didn't have to stand in line to get into the church like most people did. We had our seats every night. God was moving mightily, and my kids were raised in that. But we just realized, okay, we've got to back out. And I went to the folks who I was working with. I said, look, I just want you to know we can't be at church every night, because if we are, our family unit's gonna suffer. So some people have a very linear kind of viewpoint. And I've heard it said, and I'm not dissing people who say it, but it's God, ministry, family, God, family, whatever it is. It's a very linear thing.
Yeah.
I tend to see it differently. I tend to see a sphere in which God is there, ministry is there, family is there, and I don't have to think about breathing.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful. Healthy people don't have to think about breathing. It's not like I'm going to inhale and exhale. It's just the way God created us.
Yeah.
I feel like when we have to start thinking about breathing, something's wrong. When we have to start thinking about how to spend more time with our family, how to be nourishing our relationship with our spouse, when we have to start thinking about that, something's out of whack.
Right.
So we just really started sensing, look, the kids were needing me around more. So we just asked the Lord for, and it may be different for other people. You know, I think each family unit is different. Just because it worked in my family doesn't mean it's going to work in another person's family. So I would say to parents, you know, ask the Lord, what kinds of triggers, you know, when a light comes on your dashboard, you know, your check engine light, don't ignore it.
Don't ignore it. Yeah.
Don't ignore it. It's like you got a new car and it says change oil and you don't do it. I mean, those lights are for a reason. And so those lights will go off in our family.
So in this scenario, Beth was that light?
Beth was that light. My kids were that light.
Yeah.
And I just really needed to be sensitive. And some people, maybe even in leadership, said, hey, listen, you know, this.
That was the same for Rachel and I, because we were raised in a leadership that said, this is the price that ministers pay. So it's almost like this is a part of what you're saying yes to, winning the lost at any cost, all of those kinds of things. Family will understand later the sacrifices you had to make in the infancy stages. And I remember one time when really what transitioned me to get to the place to where I had the opportunity of meeting you in North Carolina was we took over a mess that had transpired in the church that we were in. And I walked through my house and my son's like, hey, can we go play football? And I said, hey, I'm too tired. And immediately in that moment, I felt the Lord speak to my heart and said, you've just now taught him that when you're serving me, you're bringing the scraps home to him.
Wow.
That serving Jesus brings a weaker father home instead of a better father home. And so for us, we realized, wait, that was a red light. It was a pause that we had to put in place and begin to pivot and make sure that the kids knew that there will always be a priority.
Yes.
One of the things, too, in that season that I noticed was when Jesus said, hey, anything that I'm giving to you, I've already received from the Father, which in essence would basically communicate to me is that before it hit my heart, it hit the Son's heart.
Yeah.
There was a priority where he wanted to reveal who he was to the Son. The Son then had the opportunity to reveal who he and the Father was to me. And in that process, I realized the priority of living life from the inside out.
So good, bro.
And so I love how you were willing to see those things and then also not allow someone else's perspective to become the perspective by which you led your home, that you and Beth had to decide those things for your family. And I agree, each family has to navigate through it differently. But in the end, if echad is the goal here, then the dialogue between a husband and a wife in regards to how they're going to steward and lead their family must be the priority and the dominating factor by which decisions are made in the house.
Absolutely. And when our hearts are after the Lord, even if we make a wrong decision, God turns it around.
No one like
I mean, if God says to do something and we do something else, watch out.
Right.
But if we're doing something believing the Lord wants us to be doing it, even if we blow it, God's not up there with a whip going, man, I can't believe you blew it. I mean, our hearts are after him.
Yeah.
When I look at my kids today, I honestly, bro, I'm so thankful for them. But it was a combination of Beth and me doing the best we can. And the people in the midst of this crazy busy season that we were in, it was the people who came into our home. We opened up our home. We had nonstop people coming through visiting the revival.
Right.
So here we were in the midst of this crazy season, people coming into our home, students coming into our home. My kids had heroes that were somewhere between their age and their parents' age. They were like, oh man, this guy is so cool. And even today, Theo, the people that my kids are looking up to are people who had come into our home. This is a whole nother issue, but let me just throw this out. Our echadness, if I can even use that word, is supernatural and important. But opening up our home to people in the area of hospitality, pray for me. I'm writing a book that I've been writing for 5 years on hospitality. Everywhere in Scripture where you see hospitality, the result is life. Abraham at 99, seeing three men opening up his home, serving a meal. It says he hurried. He quickly ran. He did this 99 years old in the heat of day, serving three people. And then one of them happens to be the Lord incarnate, saying, this time next year, you're going to have a son. You know what brought Abraham life in his home? He and his wife hanging on to God's promise. Abraham believed in God who can give life to the dead. He's 99. His wife is barren, beyond the age of bearing children. He sees three men. He starts serving them and treating them as honored guests. And they say, where's Sarah?
Wow.
In the tent. This time next year, you're going to have a son. You want life to come into your household?
Yeah.
Open up your home to strangers. Bro, I am convinced. The very next chapter, Lot sees two men who were angels in the city of Sodom. He opens up, he urged them to come in. His family is saved. Rahab the harlot opens up her home to two spies, and she becomes the great-great-grandmother of King David. I mean, are you kidding me? Was it Rahab who was the great-great-grandmother, or Ruth? I mean, maybe it was...
Rahab. Yeah, you have that. Yeah, and then also too, you have the noblewoman in Kings who opens up to the prophet.
Yeah,
and brings it. Yeah,
and what can I do for you?
Yeah.
The Shunammite woman.
Yeah, the Shunammite. Yeah.
What can I do for you?
Wow,
it's
I didn't see that.
After another,
and it's easy when you are navigating through difficulty to seclude yourself. And many times the resources to your health are not necessarily found in that little circle.
Come on, bro.
Bringing other people into it.
So one of the things that I wish I would have. It's not that I wish I would have known it. I wish I could have testified to it like I did now.
Which is odd that coming from where you came from in a communal setting, with everybody kind of coming in.
I used to look at my mom and dad and I would say, listen, because they always had people living with us. And I was like, listen, you can say no. They actually built, we lived in a trailer, 14 feet wide, 68 feet long, 3 kids, 1 bathroom. And my parents built an addition onto the trailer so that they could have a place for guests.
That's amazing.
And I was like, Mom, Dad, listen, you always have people living here. Right. And then here I go, and my parents laugh at me to this day. They were like, listen, you've had way more people live with you. But that's another thing, bro, that really produced life in our family and in our children. I mean, you talk to our kids. Yeah. They grew up, there were always people in our home. And you might think that would rob from the oneness of family. No. We were still able to build on that echad. But my kids today, I thank God that they're all serving the Lord, that there's life inside of each and every one of those kids. Not because we were the perfect parents, we were not. But God gave us grace, even in the midst of a crazy season of ministry, to get alone family time, to preserve date nights, to preserve time alone, and to open up our house and treat strangers as honored guests. And God's really done an amazing thing.
One of the things that we've always, and maybe, there's no pressure if the budget doesn't accommodate this perspective, but we've actually, when we were picking our dinner table, it wasn't just enough seats for our family.
Come on.
We made sure that, hey, we wanted a larger table because we want to bring people in. Our couch isn't enough to just fit us. We want people to feel like we've created space for them. We've been waiting for them. We want them to feel comfortable when they're in our house. And then also too, in our budget, our budget, we would have people over once a week in our food budget, so that we could accommodate people. We wanted the Lord to know that if there was a place where you needed to send people to experience your love, to be cared for, and if there was brokenness in the heart of humanity and you needed a house for that place for you to engage and interact with them, please find our home as a place to send people to. And so we've lived by that, and we've seen many times, Rachel and I have looked at each other and we don't have what we need in the moment to give each other what we know each other needs. And then somebody would come and sit at our table and have dinner and pour into us. Bro. And we felt refreshed as much as they felt loved and refreshed by the hospitality we had given them. I think it's Paul who says, I know you're expecting to come and receive from me, but the truth is every time I'm with you, I'm finding myself receiving from you.
I love it.
Well, we love you guys. Scott, thank you for this.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for taking the time. I'm so excited to have you speaking to the school.
I can't wait.
maybe next time we can find a way to get our spouses
I love it.
involved in this conversation.
We need
But
to.
again, please track down Scott and his family, his ministry. The information's there on the screen. We love you guys, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for standing with us, supporting us. If you want more information on the ministry, A Place for Family, what we're doing, aplaceforfamily.co. We love you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Can I just say one thing before we close? Because I'm probably going to end up sharing this on my little YouTube channel. Listen, I really want to encourage all of you, if you're looking to sow financially into a ministry that values family, I don't know of another one. I'm not joking. Like what you guys are really, really producing. And as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. We're also going to stand with you and A Place for Family. We love you and so grateful for you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We love you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.